The first time Ryan saw her, he thought maybe he was imagining things. A young woman, clutching a little boy by the wrist, standing outside the corner laundromat in the drizzle. Her hair was damp, stringy, stuck to her cheekbones. But even through the weariness, there was a kind of beauty that made you pause. High cheekbones, big watchful eyes, lips trembling as though holding back words. The boy couldn't have been older than 6, his backpack sagging with duct tape on the straps. Ryan almost kept walking. He had his own life unraveling, bills unpaid, an eviction notice curling on the inside of his apartment door like a silent threat. But something in the woman's posture, that nervous glance over her shoulder, stopped him. He thought, what's their story? And more dangerously, why do I care? Ryan wasn't anyone's hero. He was 34, a single dad of a daughter who was 8, and every day was a tug-of-war between doing enough at his construction job and scraping together food for the week. His fridge at home had nothing but half a bottle of ketchup, a jar of pickles, and some milk a few days past safe. His daughter Lily had shoes worn thin at the soles, and her backpack was stitched at the corners with dental floss because thread had cost extra. Ryan had taught himself to smile through it, but inside he was a mess, walking on eggshells of debt and despair. So why did he find himself slowing near that laundromat, watching this stranger? The woman caught him staring and tightened her grip on her boy. He whimpered, "Mom, I'm cold." She crouched to his level, rubbing his arms briskly, murmuring, "Just a little longer. Baby." Her jeans were soaked at the knees, her sneakers looked borrowed or too big, and there was a split second when Ryan saw her wince, like she had bruises hidden under that thin jacket. He almost walked away, telling himself she wasn't his problem. Then the boy's eyes lifted, round, dark, and full of something Ryan recognized all too well. Hunger, fear, the look of a child who has seen too much. He heard himself ask, "You two need a ride somewhere?" She hesitated, then shook her head too quickly. "We're fine." Her voice was controlled, steady, but her throat tightened as she said it. Ryan stuffed his hands in his hoodie pocket, shifting from one worn sneaker to the other. "Look, I'm not trying to be weird. Just, it's wet and cold. My truck's right here. No strings." Her boy tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, please." She pressed her lips together, then finally nodded once, sharp, reluctant. Ryan exhaled and gestured toward his pickup. Paint chipped, seat covers ripped, but it ran. They climbed in. The little boy huddled against the heater vents like he hadn't been warm in days. As they drove, Ryan asked gently, "Where to?" She bit her lip, eyes darting to the side window, fogged from the rain. "Just somewhere with lights still on." Her voice cracked on the last word. Ryan understood. He drove them to a small all-night diner he sometimes took Lily to when they couldn't sleep. Neon buzzed over the window, pink and blue casting soft glow on her damp hair. Inside, the contrast hit hard. Warmth, the smell of fries and coffee, the clink of plates. She looked out of place, holding herself tight, shoulders stiff, like a deer ready to bolt. But when the waitress brought hot chocolate for the boy, something softened. He blew on it, eyes wide, clutching the mug with both hands. Ryan saw the woman's fingers trembling as she pushed her own mug aside, whispering that she wasn't hungry. He ordered a plate of pancakes anyway and slid it toward the boy. The kid ate like he hadn't had a meal in days. The woman finally spoke. "I'm Claire." "This is Mason." She offered a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ryan nodded. "Ryan, I've got a little girl too." He tapped his fork against the plate. "She's at home, probably watching cartoons. Wish I could give her pancakes every morning." He tried to sound casual, but Claire studied him, noticing the frayed cuffs of his hoodie, the calloused hands, the exhaustion etched deep in his face. For the first time, she asked, "You're a single dad?" He nodded. "Since she was 3. A silence stretched, heavy but not hostile, and Ryan noticed Claire's hand drifting up to brush her hair back, revealing a faint purple mark along her jawline before she caught herself and adjusted her collar quickly. The rehook struck quietly in that moment. Ryan realized this woman wasn't just poor or lost, she was running. From what, he didn't know. But the bruise told enough. Later, outside the diner, Claire clutched Mason close. "Thank you. You don't know what this means." Ryan shrugged, though inside his chest ached. "Just pancakes." But as he watched her fumble with a plastic bag of their meager belongings, worn clothes stuffed in, a child's book bent at the corners, he knew it wasn't just pancakes. It was a lifeline. He wanted to offer more, but how could he when he barely had enough for Lily? Still, when she asked quietly, "Do you know a safe place we could stay? Just for a night?" He felt torn. His apartment was tiny, his fridge bare, his rent behind. But he couldn't imagine them back on that wet street. He hesitated, then said, "You can come by mine. Just for tonight. Couch isn't great, but it's dry." Claire's lips parted, uncertain. Mason yawned against her shoulder. She looked at Ryan for a long moment, then nodded faintly. And as they drove toward his apartment, Ryan couldn't shake the gnawing feeling. Whatever storm she was running from, it was about to spill over into his fragile world. Ryan's apartment was small, a two-room walk-up with peeling paint and a bulb in the hallway that flickered when the wind rattled the windows. Inside, the fridge offered little more than what he already knew: pickles, ketchup, expired milk. The couch sagged in the middle, but Claire and Mason settled onto it with visible relief. Mason curled into his mother's side almost immediately, exhaustion overtaking him. Claire sat stiffly, back straight, hands clasped on her knees as though bracing for judgment. Ryan busied himself with the kettle, pouring weak tea into chipped mugs because it was all he had. She whispered, "You didn't have to do this." He answered simply, "I know." Their eyes met, and though neither spoke further, there was an unspoken recognition, two people carrying more than they could afford, yet unwilling to admit how close they were to breaking. By morning, Ryan faced reality. Lily, his daughter, woke confused to find strangers in their living room. She rubbed her eyes, her hair tangled, her pajama pants too short at the ankles. "Dad?" she asked quietly. Ryan explained in the simplest terms. They needed a safe place. Lily studied Mason, who looked equally uncertain, then offered him half of her cereal without waiting for permission. That act settled the tension. Children often see the truth before adults can. Over the next days, Claire revealed fragments of her story. She had left a controlling partner, a man who isolated her from friends and family, keeping her dependent and frightened. Mason had witnessed too much: raised voices, slammed doors, threats muttered under breath. Claire carried bruises not only on her skin but in the way she scanned every street corner, the way she jumped at sudden noises. She had fled with only what she could carry, hoping to start over. Ryan struggled with conflicting feelings. He could barely manage his own obligations, rent overdue, utility shut-off notices arriving weekly, yet he felt protective toward Claire and Mason. He knew what it meant to be cornered by life with no way out. He took extra shifts where he could, even when his hands ached from long days of hauling lumber, because he didn't want Lily to notice the growing emptiness in their cupboards. Then came the second turning point. One evening, as Ryan walked home from work, he found a police cruiser parked outside his building. Two officers were speaking with Claire in the doorway. Mason clung to her leg, wide-eyed. Ryan approached cautiously. An officer turned toward him and asked his name. When he confirmed, the officer explained they were following up on a missing person report. Claire's ex-partner had filed it, alleging she had disappeared with their child. The revelation struck Ryan with force. Claire stood rigid, jaw tight, refusing to meet his eyes. The officer explained further. While the bruises were real, the situation was legally complex. The man Claire had fled was not only her ex, but also Mason's father, and he was pressing for custody. Ryan's instincts wavered. Had he misjudged? Was he protecting someone who might have misled him? He looked at Claire, who whispered fiercely, "I left because I had to. He'll destroy Mason if I go back." Her voice shook but carried conviction. Ryan saw again the hidden fear in her gestures, the exhaustion she carried, and realized the truth was not written in paperwork but in the quiet terror of her body language. The officers requested she come to the station to clarify details. Ryan offered to watch Mason. Claire knelt before her son, smoothing his hair back, whispering promises she could not guarantee. When she was led away, Ryan felt the fragile trust between them shift into something heavier: responsibility. Hours later, after dark, Claire returned with tear-reddened eyes. The police had listened but warned her. Unless she pursued legal protections, the man could still demand custody. She sat at Ryan's table, hands trembling around the tea mug. "I don't have money for lawyers," she admitted. Ryan leaned back, exhausted, staring at the ceiling. He had no savings, no spare resources. Yet he could not watch them collapse back into danger. For the first time in years, he reached out for help. Not for himself, but for them. He contacted a local charity he once avoided out of pride, explaining their situation. Days later, a volunteer arrived. A woman in her 40s with polished shoes, a sharp black coat, and an air of quiet authority. She spoke kindly but firmly, offering immediate assistance with food vouchers, shelter placement, and legal guidance. The contrast was sharp, her elegance against the worn carpet and peeling paint of Ryan's home. But her presence marked a shift. Claire straightened, her dignity resurfacing as she realized she was no longer alone. Mason clutched the grocery bag the volunteer left behind, marveling at its weight. Ryan watched all this, bone-tired yet strangely lighter. He understood something important then. Survival is rarely solitary. Even the smallest act, sharing a meal, opening a door, making a call, could alter the course of another's life. Weeks later, Claire secured temporary custody protection and a safe housing arrangement through the charity. She hugged Ryan tightly, whispering, "You saved us when no one else would." He shook his head. "No, I just noticed." Lily and Mason exchanged goodbyes like old friends. As Claire and her son stepped into their new beginning, Ryan stood in the doorway, shoulders heavy, but heart steady. His own struggles had not disappeared, rent was still late, bills still looming, but he had witnessed how compassion multiplied. And in that, there was a kind of wealth no notice could erase. The moral was clear. The smallest act of generosity can redirect a life. It doesn't take abundance, only awareness. In the end, Ryan realized he had given Claire and Mason hope, and in doing so had rediscovered his own.